Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to discuss about the article that I have picked, and this article is related to our topics in environmental science because it talks about environmental issues. This article is entitled Environmental Pollution by Pesticides, written by Edward C.A. and published in Springer Science and Business Media last 2013. So, in his article, author Edwards talked about the effects of organic pesticides and pesticides in the environment. It has both positive and negative effects. However, the negative one is dominating the effect rather than the positive one. Let us begin dividing the parts of his article so that we can understand. His first sentence says, I'm gonna read it. The persistent organic pesticides have saved millions of lives by controlling human disease vectors and by greatly increasing the yields of agricultural crops. First, let us define human disease vectors. Human disease vectors are the human beings that transmits infectious diseases to animals, plants, and in agricultural crops. So, in his sentence here, the organic pesticides have saved millions of lives because it has controlled the human disease vectors, which means that the disease being transmitted by the human to the animals, to the plants, and to the agricultural crops is now being controlled because of organic pesticides. Also, it has greatly increased the yields of agricultural crops, which means we have now wider and bigger agricultural crops in our country because of organic pesticides. That is his first sentence. And we can clearly see that in his first sentence, he stated the positive effect of organic pesticides and pesticides here in our country. But let us see his second sentence. Here is his second sentence saying, however, in recent years, man has become ever more conscious of the way in which his environment is becoming increasingly polluted by chemicals that may harm plants, animals, or even man himself. This means, in my own understanding, that throughout the years of using organic pesticides, human beings are now starting to notice the negative effects of organic pesticides to the environment. Plants are now becoming weak. Organic pesticides now harm the plants, the land, the animals, and even we ourselves who use organic pesticides can be directly affected by it. So, it is clear that Edward, the author of this article entitled Environmental Pollution by Pesticides, states both positive and negative effects. Now we are going to focus and emphasize these negative effects because this is what he wants to tell us. In his third sentence, he says, amongst these chemicals, the organochlorine insecticides have been well to the fore as a major cause of anxiety to ecologists, not only because they persist so long, but also because of the readiness with which they are taken up into the bodies of living organisms, especially the fatty tissues of both animals and humans. First, let us define what is organochlorine insecticides. Organochlorine insecticides is a chlorinated hydrocarbon used extensively from the 1940s up until today in agriculture and mosquito control. So it contains the chemicals DDT, methoxychlor, dieldrin, chlordun, toxaphene, mirex, kipone, lindane, and benzene hexachloride. These chemicals are harmful. It may give benefits at first, but if you are going to depend the status of your crops, of your agriculture, and of your land to these organochlorine pesticide, it will harm your agricultural crops and your land, and will definitely harm you since you are the one who's using this for your crops. Now, in my own understanding, the third sentence of Edward in his article says that the organochlorine pesticide is the main concern of the ecologists because it brings harm to the plants, to the animals, and to the agriculture. Now, organochloride pesticides are being used continuously throughout the years by farmers because they believe that these pesticides makes their agriculture and their plants healthier and greener and more abundant. However, they do not know that this pesticide is harming their agriculture, slowly killing their plants and their crops. So this is a very harmful organochlorine pesticide. Let us proceed to the next sentence of Edward in his article. He says, the extent and seriousness of the potential hazards due to these chemicals still remains to be fully defined. He means that the effects of these organochlorine pesticide is still not yet clear. What he means by this is that we still don't know what are the effects of these pesticides, but the only thing that we know is that this is harmful to the plants and to the agriculture, especially if we continue to use this for the future years. Our information on the occurrence of residues in the various parts of the environment is very uneven and localized. Ecologists does not have enough information and data regarding with the effects of organic chloride pesticide in agricultural crops because their data is only based on localities, regionals, and not as a whole. So, for example, their data is only based in Davao City, North Cotabato, South Cotabato. But in the Philippines as a whole, as a country, they do not have enough data and information about the effects of these pesticides. So they are having a hard time telling what are the clear effects of this one and how we can prevent it. And they are having a hard time telling the farmers that these should not be used anymore because this is harmful. Because this information is not yet clear to the Filipinos, only few has knowledge about it. Now let us proceed to the last part of Edward's article. He says, for instance, whereas we have a great deal of data on residues in North America, we know virtually nothing about the extent of pesticide contamination in Africa. Yes, we know different countries, different continents, but we don't know what are the experiences they are going through in their countries. For example, we know that the farms in North America is very abundant. However, we don't know what are going on in the farms of Africa. We only know one side of the story. To continue, South America and much of Asia, although large amounts of organochlorine insecticides have been used in these areas. So in his last part, he wanted to tell us that we know the effects of organochloride pesticides in only some parts of the world. So if North America is experiencing the positive effects of organochloride pesticide, we don't know about the other continents, about the other countries. So it is one-sided. It is important that we should know both effects, positive and negatives, to all parts of the country that's been using organic chloride pesticides so that we can figure out what's the right thing to do and what's the right information to tell everyone so that we will be aware, especially our farmers. So yes, that is the article of Edward C.A. entitled Environmental Pollution by Pesticides, published in Springer Science Business Media last 2013. He wanted to tell us that organic pesticides are helpful. It makes our agricultural crops wider and bigger. However, it has more negative effects than positive effects. We should not be dependent on pesticides because this is very harmful in our plants and agriculture. That's all. Thank you.